Wrong one.
You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
Hey, how are we doing, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. It's your boy Pat Lane, as always, a little under the weather here with my guy Matt St. Jean. And Matt, it certainly looks like we'll be playing the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, it looks a lot like this real stinker for the Timberwolves tonight. Maybe they pull out something in the second half, but yikes.
Yeah. It's you're down 30 at the half is not where you want to be, especially at home. Like, this is a team that
In an elimination
these
game.
guys, no. This is like a complete no-show from a team that everyone was like, oh, this team's gonna be great. No, thanks. Nope.
They're a year away still. This is
like
at least a year away because they need development from some of these guys. And Dallas has been much better than I expected. I was skeptical of their roster construction, but they've had guys kind of develop in season who have played very well. And I think when you have Kyrie and Luka as your top two players, you need some good defense around that. You need some good rebounding around that. And then, any shooters you can get, and they have guys who've done that for them. So, credit to Dallas for putting together a decent roster and taking advantage of the fact that the Nuggets got knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, this is this is kind of where we're at right now. And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, the Celtics had no competition. They had no this and they know that and blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, well, wait a second. If that's they're the 5 seed in the West. Like, they're playing the Wolves, an unproven team who can't do it this year. They're a year away. They just happen to knock out the Nuggets, right? And it's the way it goes. Was it 96 I think it was 96 when the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl. Denver was the number 1 team by far, and Jacksonville went into Denver and smacked them. And then Jacksonville came here, and the Patriots beat Jacksonville to make it to the Super Bowl. Now, of course, they ended up losing the Super Bowl, but you luck out by that happening. And it's like, hey, you can only play the teams in front of you. That's just the way it goes.
Yep, that's the way this whole thing is. It's very difficult when you got to play really good teams in the playoffs. So anytime you can get them knocked out and not have to play them,
right.
Take advantage.
And that's the way it goes, right? And Spectre says that the whole East was hurt and the Celtics are untested, which is fine. But I disagree with that because they had those close games. And yes, they weren't playing superstars in those games. But it was crunch time. And by the way, Halliburton was healthy for the first 2 games of the season, for the first 2 games of the series. I know he got hurt in game 2, but the point is that the Celtics dealt with adversity. They did everything they could. They're the best team in the league. They finished the regular season 14 games above the second place team in the East. What do you want them to do? They were the best team all year, and they smacked everyone they played. That's what happens when you're the best team.
Well, the Celtics have also been the team that was hurt in the East this entire time. So I'm definitely not going to feel bad about winning games the one time the team is still hurt, but also playing teams that are equally hurt. So it's fair.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and Nagan, we're going to listen. Let's come back to this. 3:55 in the show on what is this? The 30th, May 30th?
Yeah.
You're wrong, Nagan. We'll come back to it. You'll be wrong. The Mavericks, the Dallas Mavericks. Get out of here, dude. Kyrie's gonna fold like a lawn chair at TD Garden. We all know this. This is what's gonna happen.
Celtics in 5.
Yeah, I think maybe six, but I think they're gonna come out game 1 and blow doors, and people are gonna be like, oh, the Celtics are good. And
they played Dallas twice this year and beat them both times.
And then the narrative is going to be, well, they didn't play Denver, and so it doesn't really count anyways because Dallas wasn't that good. And it's like, no, dude, stop it. So, but that's the way it goes.
If you're playing a team in the finals, they're good. That's correct. How it works.
That's correct. So, anyways, let's get into some football. Matt, I feel like we're kindred spirits, Matt, in a lot of things. And so I wanted to tell you the story because this to me is a funny story. But we went out. I chaperoned senior prom last night, and we went out just to
that is an image in my head right now. I'm gonna savor this for a second.
It was great. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. A lot of kids there and saying goodbye, and it was great. It was actually at Gillette. We were disappointed because the Stones were doing their sound check, and so they had all the windows blocked out, so you couldn't see. So usually when you have the problem there, you have access to the red seats and stuff, and you take pictures with the field in the background and stuff. But the Stones are playing tonight at Gillette, and so they were doing sound check, and so no one could look out there, no one could go out there. It kind of sucked for the kids, but they had the 6 trophies, which was cool. Kids could take pictures with the trophies and stuff, which was cool. But anyways, so we're after the show, after the thing, we go to Bar Louie at Patriot Place, and we're just kind of hanging out or whatever, and NFL Network is on. And so NFL Network is playing greatest games ever or whatever, right? And it was the 2015 AFC Championship game. And it was the last drive of the game. And so I said shout out to my friend Karen, who was there with us. I said to Karen, I go, Karen, here comes one of the greatest passes you'll ever see in your entire life. And she was like, what? And I'm like, right here, right there.
4th and 10.
4th and 10 to Gronk over the top. And one of my buddies down the other end goes, hey, he's right. So needless to say, he throws the pass, and she's like, how does your brain work like that? I don't understand how you know. She's like, that was in 2015. That was like 9 years ago. And I'm
that game physically hurt me. That game still hurts
me.
It
was brutal.
That
was brutal.
That or the game against the 49ers in 2012, and obviously the Super Bowl against the Eagles, I think are probably my 3 favorite Tom Brady performances in a loss. It doesn't look like it on the stat sheet. They only scored 18 points. But the fact that they scored 18 points in that game at Denver with that offensive line against those pass rushers, I was banged up as they were at that point in the season, is a miracle and a testament to what Tom Brady was able to do.
Right. It's totally true. Totally true.
If their offensive line is remotely healthy, they win that game because the Broncos had no juice. They scored 2 touchdowns because Owen Daniels has Jamie Collins' number, and that was it. That was the whole thing for Denver.
Yeah, it really was. They had nothing. Denver's offense had nothing. And the Patriots' offense just couldn't get going. And what's sad about that year is that's the Antonio Brown year, where Antonio Brown gets his head taken off. And the Patriots went down to Miami, had lost, right? And had lost the 1 seed. If they have the 1 seed and they play that game at home, I am firmly convinced they win that game if they play that game at home.
You don't have to deal with the snap count if you're at home, which is huge. Oh, and they lost. It's not just the Miami game. They lost that Jets game in overtime. They lost that Philly game that year, which is one of the strangest football games I've ever seen. Eagles scored 35 points. Only 14 of them were on offense. 3 defense or special teams touchdowns, including a 100-yard pick 6 off Tom Brady.
Really weird. That was the Motor Kick game. Was that the Motor Kick game?
Yeah, Nate Ebner, who I feel like is going to come up in this episode. Anyway, with the new kickoff rules.
Yep.
But and then the other loss they had was an overtime loss at Denver with Brock Osweiler starting, and some questionable officiating in that game.
The touchdown run in overtime in the snow. Brutal.
Yeah. So. That was the wheels fell off in the second half of that season once the injuries piled up for sure. Once Deion Lewis got hurt,
and I still say, and I'm probably wrong, but I still say that the Patriots were worried about Pittsburgh, and they looked at it and said the only team we can lose to is Pittsburgh. So if we get the 2 seed, and Pittsburgh gets I think Pittsburgh was a 6 seed. So, if they win that game, which they're going to against Cincinnati, then they go play the 1 seed, and they would beat the 1 seed. And that was their thought process. And, of course, they still almost pulled it off, by the way, against Denver without Antonio Brown.
Pittsburgh was, they had to go on the road, right? Because Cincy was at home. Because Cincy was good that year. That was the, what's his face? Was in the MVP conversation until he got hurt.
Carson Palmer, right?
No, Andy Dalton.
Oh, Andy Dalton. Right.
With AJ Green. That team was humming that year.
But then Andy Dalton was hurt. And so they looked at it and said, since he's going to lose to Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh's the only team that can beat the Patriots, is how they felt about it. So they felt like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it's kind of funny though that there is a world where that AFC Championship game is like New England at Cincinnati or something. If
Yeah.
teams stay healthy, that was
Yep.
totally possible that season.
Absolutely.
And then just injuries. I pulled up their injury report from that season because I was just curious. Some of the guys. So LeGarrette Blount went on injured reserve that year. I completely forgot about that. Do you remember Terrell Brown, the corner?
Yep.
He was on injured reserve that year. Marcus Cannon missed 4 weeks during the season. Jamie Collins missed a couple weeks during the season. James Devlin missed the whole year. Aaron Dobson missed the whole back half of the season. Dominic Easley missed the end of that season. Dane Fletcher was out for the whole year. Let's see. Chris Jones was out for the whole year.
Yep. Not the Chiefs, Chris Jones. The white
not
Chris
that
Jones.
one, no. Deion Lewis,
though.
This is the for anybody that's used Pro Football References thing, they have like a whole injury report thing, and it's like 2 pages for this New England team because they were that hurt. Edelman missed a whole bunch of time with that foot injury he had.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was 100% healthy either when he came back.
No, he wasn't. Chandler Jones was banged up that year. Like Keyshawn Martin was on that team, was banged up. Nate Solder got hurt early in the season and missed like the whole year. Brian Sork started the year injured reserve. Brian Timms was still on the team that year and was out for the whole season. Ryan Wendell was out. So by the time you get to the end of the season, like the offensive line was just. I don't see Sebastian Vollmer on here. But I could have sworn he was hurt. Vollmer was hurt. So I believe in that game they had Marcus Cannon at right tackle, and then Sebastian Vollmer injured at left tackle. Something like that.
Yeah. It was not good. It was not
good. And Brian Stork at center. Who was tipping the snaps.
Yeah. Yeah, not great.
With no running backs.
Not great. So, but alas, another Super Bowl passed that we could have won. But it is what it is. What are you gonna do? They won 6.
Not bitter.
So, about it. It's So yeah, you didn't just spend 5 minutes listing off all the guys that got injured in the 2015 season. So Dane Fletcher was on your list. Okay, so we're going pretty deep here. All right,
but Brian Timms was on my list.
Yeah,
what could have been?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So anyway,
Aaron Dobson.
I mean, we're stretching. We're stretching here. We're like, hey, you never know. You never know if all those guys had been healthy. Maybe they would have been good enough.
Well, there were a lot of guys who were like playing through injury, which I think was
true.
Adrian Waddle was playing through injury, and
right. Well, when you have mediocre guys playing through injury, that's when it's really bad because you're like, well, they're not great to begin with, and now they're playing through injury. It's even worse. So,
Amendola was questionable for that game. Scott Chandler was questionable for that game. Jamie Collins was questionable. Nate Ebner, Edelman, both questionable.
Yeah.
Let's see who else. Gronk was questionable. Dante Hightower was questionable. Chandler Jones was questionable.
Gronk had like 150 yards receiving that game. It was incredible that game.
Yeah. Ninkovich and and Slater were both questionable. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and Brian Sork was also questionable.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. We're going to end this episode of Injury Report from 2015 and go to
we're going down a rabbit hole here. But anyway, so let's get to this year's team. Okay. We're in OTAs. And it's only the second day of like actual practice with the media there, right? Now, obviously they've had other practice days. And so like we've seen things from them, but it's just stuff that they want us to see, right? And of course the same thing happened today, right? Where they scripted things, they knew the media was going to be there and whatnot. So, but it's, I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited about it. I really think Drake Maye, although it hasn't been perfect and no one expected it to be perfect, just based on what I've seen and what I've heard, he's a lot further along than I thought he would be. I think what gives me hope is the short and intermediate game, that he's been doing well there, because that's what I was the most concerned about. And the fact that he's been doing well there. Now, again, there's no pads on. They're not, I get that. I understand all of that. Right. But it looks pretty nice. And so I'm happy about it.
That video of Drake Maye with the no-look pass, that made me feel something I haven't felt since like 2019. That was incredible. And I've been saying this, Pat. I won't be shocked if Drake May just wins the starting job week 1. Like, he's a really talented guy who does a lot of good things on the football field.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have him, I think, working as the third string guy right now. I think mostly so he can work with the other rookies. That's kind of my read on it. And also because order doesn't matter. They're just teaching right now. But from all accounts, he's doing well with it. I don't know if it actually means anything, but I think it's better than him not playing well at this point. And he seems to be putting in the work, which is all you can ask for. He can, I think it was Evan Lazar, or one of the guys was talking about how he had a slant where he's able to, change the arm angle on it and fit a ball in. And it's like, oh, that's new at Patriots camp. We haven't seen a quarterback who can do that in a while.
Yeah, no, it sure is. And that's, even the no-look pass is interesting because, not because the no-look pass, but because he looks so comfortable on the move. He just looks so comfortable playing football. Like Mac Jones, to me, it just always felt like he was trying the hardest he possibly could at all times, which is great. Yeah. But it just didn't come easy to him, And I feel like this comes a little bit easier. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I just think it comes easier to him. And I think that's important. And one of the things that Ombe Mob says here, but like, May, Polk, and Baker are all close, right? After practice, the three of them are working for 15, 20 minutes, just throwing the ball around. Hey, run this play and run that play and run this and do that. And you see Baker, right? And Carlos was talking about the receiving core. And, you see Baker make some nice, like some highlight reel plays today. Now, of course, I'm waiting for that video to come out. We haven't seen that video. I'm sure the Patriots, I'm hoping the Patriots social media will get some of those videos out. But like, making contested catches. The one in double that people described was in double coverage on the sideline, where like, did he get his feet down? Did he not get his feet down? He makes an acrobatic catch over two guys and then has the footwork to get both feet in bounds. And so like, that's the type of stuff that you're looking for from Javon Baker. That doesn't mean he's going to play right away, but he has some of that, and I think that that's really important. And I'm excited about what we have in these three guys.
Yeah, I love that they're working together. I mean, I think you got to throw Jaheim Bell in this conversation too. The no-look pass, that was to Jaheim Bell.
Yeah.
And, I don't think the fact that it's a no-look on a throw like that is something crazy. But what I do think is worth mentioning is that looks like some kind of RPO bootleg thing, if I'm remembering the play correctly. And if this is a play where Drake May has a couple different options to throw the ball and he can also run, well, if he can hit a no-look pass on that, I mean, you can turn a 3-yard play into an 8-yard play because the defenders are not where they're supposed to be because of that. Like, you can do some cool stuff with that. But I think a no-look pass is like, I'm thinking like Matthew Stafford. I think Drake May has a little of that in his game where he's just not afraid to throw some of these balls and give his receivers chances. So that's nice. And Jaheim Bell's the kind of guy. It's like, all right, well, if you get him the ball in space with a head of steam and let him run, and the defender is frozen because of the no look, well, he's going to go run and he's going to break a couple tackles and he's going to pick up yards for you. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. So excited about that. And we've seen, I think they're working some vertical stuff with the tight ends too.
Getting down the middle of the field.
And some slot fades too, which I think is an area where Bell can be really good. And I even saw they were working some kind of like fake, like a double screen thing where they fake a screen to one side and throw it to the other. And it was like a tight end screen to Austin Hooper. So that was interesting. Not necessarily in love with giving 45-year-old Austin Hooper the ball in space as a primary part of our offense, but as misdirection, that's fine.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's, listen, I agree with you. And I love the fact that it's just more weapons. Right. And listen, Elliot Wolf talked about it on Kay Adams' show, that it's like, we have to do a better job, and they talked about Drake May a little bit, and he didn't shade Drake May, which I liked. Right. But he's like, look, we have to surround him with more talent. We have to give him a better opportunity to be successful. And so that's taking a little bit of responsibility for, number one, not getting the players, and number two, whatever happened in the meeting rooms and everything else, like, I think that that's part of it too, right? Like, that can't be overlooked, in my opinion. This VR, this virtual reality stuff is interesting. Like, I saw a few clips of posted. I think it was LSU used it, and Jaden Daniels kind of decision making, helped a little bit. And it's not like, again, it's not like do this all the time, but again, it's a way to get more reps when you don't have him on the field, right? Jacoby's probably going to be the starting quarterback. Now we'll see what happens with Drake May week 1. Jacoby just looks, he's just a professional quarterback. And I feel like you can be comfortable with him back there. If Drake May makes that push, he's going to need all the reps he can get. So if that means he's doing a VR headset, like, yeah, okay, it's not the same thing, but like it's something. And it's just anything to get you more prepared for the game and to be thinking about it and listen, there's a whole bunch of, I did some brain game stuff with my kids back in the day, with my middle school kids back in the day when I taught middle school. This is years ago. And brain games, this guy actually went to, it was like an Australian show. And it was like, retrain my brain is what it was called. And he would go to these specialists and retrain his brain about things. And there was a darts episode where he went in, threw darts, and then like 3 weeks later came back, threw 0 darts in between there. 0, not 1. But he visualized himself throwing the darts. He like stood in front of a mirror and just visualized like throwing it, visualized in his head, like acted out the motions. Never actually threw one, but he was 100 times better when he went back. And so it's like that power of like visualization and seeing what it is you're doing. VR kind of gives you that. Again, it's not the only thing we're going to do, but I like the idea of get as many reps as we can.
Well, like don't say no to things. If you think
Right.
this has a chance of helping you out, give it a try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I like that they're trying new things.
Right. Yep.
The Jeff Howe article today, talking about some of the things that they're changing in the building, I really liked some of the things that they're doing. They talk about kind of not capping meetings at 25 minutes, but after 25 minutes in a meeting, 5-minute break.
Yeah.
That's nice, especially at this point where you're asking people to take on crazy amounts of information at once. Giving them some of those mental breaks in there can be an effective tool to help you remember more things and to stay sharp and focused as you work through more stuff. I like that. They talk about the mural. I really like the mural. They have a mural of basically somebody as a kid wanting to be a football player, growing up and becoming one. And I think that is an important part here. You want guys to buy into your culture. You want them to work hard. Tap into the fact that for a lot of these guys, this was a childhood dream of theirs to play in the NFL.
Right.
And when it's, 11 o'clock and you got 2 more reels of film to watch, you really don't want to do it. And you see that mural and you're like, this is what 6-year-old me, this is what 10-year-old me, this is what 15-year-old me wanted, was to be here and having this opportunity. All right, let me go back to the meeting room and watch the rest of this film and do a little bit more work and put in the extra stuff. I think that's huge as a motivator. So, very, very excited about that.
And listen, I know people aren't happy about it. I know there's a lot of people that think, oh, he's not doing this and he's doing that and blah, 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 and all this other crap. But like, he's trying to do it his own way. He's trying to do it his way. And what I will say is that the Belichick disciples that have failed have tried to do it Belichick's way. And they've failed because they're not Bill Belichick. And they tried to do it Belichick's way, and it didn't work. Gerard Mayo was not doing it Belichick's way. He's doing it his way. And it might not work. That doesn't mean it's going to work. It might not work, right? He's still got to be a good coach. They still got to put guys on the field that can win, that can play. They got to come up with schemes that can win and everything else, right? But at the very least, I can look at it and say he's trying to do it his own way, right? And people are like, oh, it's like the Pete Carroll days and this and that, blah, blah. But, it's one of those things for me that I just think we should be positive about this. This is a positive development, right? That he's trying to do things his own way. He's trying to honor the memory of the guys that came before while also saying we do things differently here now, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So, I like
there's no reason to be negative about it, at least until we see what the results are on the field.
Correct.
There's no need for excessive negativity. This is the all optimism part, and that's okay. It's May. We're far away from real football still. If things look bad in August, then if people were saying there's culture issues in November, then maybe we can start having some of those conversations. But they're trying new things. They're doing it their own way. they are fully bought in, and that is kind of the bare minimum. If the guys at the top aren't bought in and aren't being genuine, then you really have no chance in the long term. So we've gotten off that ground floor. We have an idea that like they know what they want to do. And even if this is successful, it's not all going to work. But that is where you start. These are your building blocks, and when things go wrong, you come back to them and you build off of it. They also mentioned, trying to empower some of the younger players too into leadership roles. With Mayo talking about how, by the end of his career, he's a leader, but he's also, married with kids and not as good at relating to some of the younger players on the team. So giving, guys who are married with kids and the guys who are younger and, still in their young 20s and wanting to enjoy themselves, leadership roles means that you kind of have different leadership styles and different aspects of respect all baked into the whole thing from the start, which gives you something to fall back on when things are tough.
Yeah, I agree. And getting them started young, right? Having those kids that are young kids are in those leadership roles. Like that to me is a powerful thing to have the young guys in leadership roles as well. Cause you're saying to them, hey, look, just because you're new here doesn't mean you can't be a leader. Right. And obviously we want other guys, and clearly guys are doing their thing. And we have the old leadership here to kind of lead us through. And he's really leaned into that by hiring Matthew Slater and hiring Dante Hightower and bringing those guys in. But, I think I'm happy about the way it's going. Also, I just had to give a shout out here because anytime you make a dad joke in the comments, it's coming up. It's the way it goes. Scott says, hi, I'm from Canada, boys. Oh, hello from Canada, boys. You see Scott with 1 T. And Matt follows up with, you're from Canada? I thought you were a Scot. That's fantastic. Great stuff. It's great stuff.
Great stuff in the chat. I know we're going to probably move on to another segment in a sec, but a couple other miscellaneous thoughts I had on this.
Yes, do it.
One, the Brissett thing. Tweet from Steven Ruiz a couple days ago from the Ringer quarterback guy. Since the start of 2022, Jacoby Brissett ranks 12th in total EPA with only 440 dropbacks. That's total. I don't believe that's...
it's not EPA per play.
Yeah, which means that he's not playing that much. He's been very productive, which partially is, small sample size, and he's going to get a lot of garbage time reps in there. But Brissett, I think, is already an upgrade from what they had at quarterback last year. He's a guy who probably should, he was the better quarterback in Cleveland, and he would have started over Deshaun Watson if they hadn't invested all of that money into him. Right. And he'd be the starter in Washington if they weren't, trying to sell that they could develop Sam Howell into something. So, if Drake May doesn't start year one or day one or whatever, Jacoby Brissett is,
I think we're in
a top 25 quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're in good hands with Brissett. And listen, when May's ready, it's May's turn, right? Because May's the guy you drafted him number 3 overall. If he's ready day one, you start him day one. But if he's not, I think, you feel totally happy about the fact, or totally comfortable with the fact that Jacoby Brissett's your quarterback. You're not making the playoffs. You're not going on this crazy run or whatever, but you're going to get professional quarterbacking from Jacoby Brissett. And I think that's more than you've gotten the last few years.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention was Tyquan Thornton. He's getting buzz, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but apparently he looks pretty good in camp. They were saying he was the best receiver on the field during OTAs from what was seen, which is surprising because I don't think at any point in the New England tenure you could have called him the best receiver on the field for even a single practice.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Listen, if I had known you were going to bring this up, I would have cued the music, but I don't have it queued up. I will just instead quote The Who when they said, "We won't get fooled again." Okay. Come on. What are we talking about here? It's yes. Tyquan Thornton, listen, he looks a little thick. He's got some muscle on him. That's nice. But you can't get me to buy into the Tyquan Thornton hype. Now, if he stays healthy and looks good in the preseason and actually shows up in the preseason when the pads come on and he still looks good, and Taylor Kyles was saying that his route running looks a little bit more crisp than it did the last few years. If he worked on his route running a little bit and he bulked up a little bit so he can deal with that contact a little bit more, and he still continues to play this way into July and August and then approaching September, then maybe you can convince me that he's not going to be a total waste this year. Until that happens, though, I will not be putting any stock into Tyquan Thornton. So,
you know that beam from Arrested Development where it's like Tobias and Lindsay buying a house and they just keep like getting additions.
Yes.
It's like, I think this is what it was. And they're like, yeah, people just keep like diluting them. Or is it that, or is this from when they were going to open their relationship?
I don't remember when it was going to be, but they were like, but yeah, the meme is, essentially what that like every single time.
People always fool themselves into thinking this is going to work, and it never works. But it could work for us. That's how I feel about Tyquan Thornton right now.
I love it. So, hey, listen, keep the optimism. That's okay. I got no problem with optimism, but like, goodness sake, I'm not buying any Tyquan Thornton stock anytime soon.
No, I will say it's far too early to have concern about anything, but I do find it notable that we haven't had like oh wow, Jalen Polk did this moment, or man, Pop Douglas looks good moment.
Well, I think too, like
early, so I'm not gonna.
I think too that a lot of the veterans are getting a lot of run as opposed to the young guys. So I feel like Jalen Polk hasn't gotten the work. Javon Baker I hadn't really heard about until he made those two, sensational plays today. So I think that's kind of, not that I'm not worried about it, because I think you're not wrong there, but like, it's one of those things for me that I'm not too worried about it until July comes and he's the 5th wide receiver on the bench. And I'm sitting there saying, oh boy, this isn't good, So
yeah, I'm not gonna. This isn't anything at this point. It's just something.
Oh, right, but it is something that bears watching. It is something that bears watching. I agree with you.
Yeah, going back to Thornton for a second too. I will say that obviously getting open and staying healthy have been issues for him. There were points in 2022 where I did think he looked at least decent on tape. Like a wide receiver 3 on tape,
right,
where he'd get open. It was just the quarterback was never looking for him.
Yeah,
and I do see with a guy like Drake May, who is not afraid to throw to guys and to take shots. I do wonder if that elevates what Thornton could give you if he's healthy and on the field. I don't know if might not mean Tyquan Thornton is a good player, but he might be a guy who can get you 300 to 400 yards because he is on the field, and Drake May has to throw to somebody, and he will come open on a couple shots here or there. And I thought Thornton did well running some of the seam verticals, and that's something that Drake May is really good at throwing. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
That's a good point. And Brissett has the arm talent too. He's not afraid to throw the ball downfield either. So I think that's certainly a possibility. All right, why don't you? We're doing live ad reads today. Why don't you do the first one, and then we'll have another segment that we'll do, and then I'll do the prize picks ad, and then we'll get the heck out of here.
Yeah, it's my fault. Pat asked me to record an ad. I got to it too late in the day and did not get it over to the producers in time to have ready for tonight. So doing a live ad read.
No big deal. We'll crush it with the live ad reads instead. It's going to be great.
Yes. The NBA Finals start next week, and I'd love to go see the Celtics fight for a championship against what appears to be the Dallas Mavericks. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Looking for tickets to the finals? Just search for Celtics at the Game Time app. Find tickets for all 4 home games. From there, you can hit Game Time deals to quickly find the best value seats in the arena. You can even use seat views to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Pat, I will say, that I'm here in New York. The Mets play tomorrow night. They got fireworks after the game. I was looking at Game Time earlier to see if I could, snag some tickets, get over there on a Friday night, go see some. Not going for the Mets, but I will go for the fireworks.
Hey, whatever, dude. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I love it.
Mets are not an entertaining baseball team these days, but you offer me the opportunity to sit in a ballpark, listen to baseball sounds, eat a hot dog, drink a beer, and watch fireworks. What's more American than that?
I was gonna say, man, and then you might even catch a guy throwing his glove into the crowd. So that's kind of cool.
Well, there's
So
nothing more American than watching the Mets lose too.
that's also a great point. Yes, that's also a great point.
So it's a
So
good game time. CLNS.
love it. All right. I want to talk about the kickoff rules
Mhm.
just for a bit here. I think that there's some interesting storylines going on. It was hinted at today, nothing like real, but it was hinted at today that Kansas City's thinking about using Justin Reed on their kickoffs because, again, in this situation, if you get by that first wave, right, it's going to be tough to stop, right? And having an extra guy back there that can play towards the ball, at least make a play on the ball, I'm sorry, certainly could be something that that's worth exploring. And you mentioned, the Nate Ebner connection with rugby and everything like that. And so you never know, right? Could Julius Peppers kick a little bit? I don't know. I've heard that he can kick it a bit, right? And
Julius Peppers. I think you mean Jabril.
that's what I mean, Jabril Peppers. Yeah, I'm sure maybe Julius Peppers can kick too. Who knows? I don't think
He's
he's
a
coming
strong
out of
man. I think he could kick it pretty far if
yeah,
he taught
yeah.
himself.
But
Who's the rugby guy that they brought in?
Oh, he's playing D end. I can't think of his name, but yeah, he's a defensive end. And they were talking about how they were impressed with how quick he was picking up on things. So you never know, right? You never know.
An interesting possibility for that role. They also brought in that defensive tackle from like a D2 or D3 school who was also a punter.
Yes,
he did not get a contract.
Yeah, but never know.
Yeah, one of the things I forget where I heard it, but they were talking about would you ever consider throwing offensive linemen out there for a kickoff return, trying to set blocks and stuff. I'm curious to see what the strategy looks like. And I wonder how much we see this tinkered with in the preseason, because I think there's going to be some teams that are going to say, hey, we're going to try 5 different things that we've run in camp. We're just going to see how they work for this kickoff return and for our kickoffs and everything like that. We're going to try a whole bunch of things. I think there's going to be some teams that say, we are going to run our most vanilla stuff right now. And then when week 1 shows up and it's real, we're going to start throwing stuff at the wall. We're going to run. Yeah. Curious to see where New England falls on that spectrum. This team's probably not going to be very good this year. So I hope they get crazy with it. I hope they try out a lot of different stuff. They got some athletic guys on this team. I think you want to put athletes in space. Could a guy like Jaheim Bell be useful for you on a kickoff return? I think that's the first name that comes to mind. Marcus Jones, obviously, he's a guy who's seen as a punt returner. Is he good in this format? I think Ramondre Stevenson is probably too valuable to put back there for this, but this is an area where if you're an undrafted free agent running back and you want to make the team, here's your avenue.
Right. Well, I think that's that's the idea, right? You need those guys that can play well in space. And I do think, by the way, that I forget who the heck was talking about it. Was it Lazar? No, I think it was Alex Barth talking about it. And he was saying, you can use 2 returners back there. I would 100% use 2 returners instead of just 1, because then you can mix and match things. You can do all sorts of different things. Now you got 9 against 10, right? You got 9 guys blocking 10, but I'm okay with that because maybe you run some action. Maybe you run some kind of read option mesh point type of thing, right? It's a lot to ask your guys to do, but it's in front of you. You can see what's happening right there. It's far enough away. You can see what's going on, right? And so you run some sort of mesh point and you go from there, right? Now, the other thing is that if it has to go from the 20 and in, if you kick it into the end zone, they get it at the 30. I'm curious to see how many teams are just going to kick it in the end zone and say, forget it. What difference does it make?
Well, I believe in the XFL where they did this before, or whatever league it was that did this before.
It was the XFL, I believe, yeah.
I think the average return was to the 29-yard line, 29 point something yard line.
Yeah.
So if that's what it is, then there's not really that much of an incentive to take it out versus kicking it into the end zone.
Right.
I wish they stuck with the touchback being the 35, because then you're definitely going to get teams taking it out. And
that's the thing. If you really wanted to push this, make the touchback to 35 and make them kick it there, right? But I mean, who knows? And listen, it may not be every one, but it might be a few, and we might get a few more. I mean, at this point right now, it got to a point, and Belichick is kind of the leader of this. He wanted the extra points moved back. Why did he want the extra points moved back? Because, it was like, what are we doing here? It's an automatic point every single time. There's no reason. Just go up and leave. See you later. That's it. They score a touchdown, leave the room, go to the bathroom, get a new drink, and come back, and they've kicked the extra point already. Well, now the extra point, a lot of teams still hit it, but it's not a guarantee they're going to hit it anymore, right? Well, same thing with this. Like, a lot of them are going to be touchbacks, but like, there are going to be teams that don't touch it back and then go from there. You know what I mean?
And I think I'm thinking right now, NFL Red Zone Week 1. I'm throwing that on for the opening kickoff of every one of these games. 100%. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like something could happen. Like, look at New England. You're on the road at Cincy to start the season. You get the opening kickoff, and let's say you are starting Brissett. Like, you're not starting May yet. You're still easing into the season. Right now, according to, I think, Bet Online is where I saw it, the Patriots are 9-point underdogs in that game. Obviously, a lot will change.
Yeah, right.
But 9-point underdogs, all right, well, you can make that 2-point underdog if you have some trick play that nobody's ever seen that you can break out on your opening kick return and return it back for a touchdown. You can make that happen in a hurry and set the tone for a new season. So curious to see if that happens. I'm excited to see all the variations.
Yeah, and I also wonder too, like, if you have it this way and you feel good about the returns that you can do you just return it anyways? Even if they kick it into the end zone, do you just return it anyways? I think most of these guys can kick it maybe out of the end zone, but if it's 5 yards deep in the end zone, do you say, screw it, we're returning anyways? Because we have a play that we think can work, and we have something drawn up that we like, and all we got to do is break one tackle, and who knows, So I think about that, And
I think the reverse of this is going to be true if you're New England and you're Jeremy Springer. You got to be very well coached on these kickoffs for your coverage units, because there's only going to be a handful of games as of right now where New England is even expected to be close with teams. And you can't be losing those games because somebody missed a tackle on special teams and you didn't block up the gaps correctly, and now he's gone for a touchdown. And a game you could have won by 3, you're losing by 4.
Right.
That's how you get fired as the special teams coordinator right there. So, who they put out there for that, I think, is going to be interesting. I would assume with this that you're probably going to be a lot of safeties, a lot of defensive ends. So Brendan Schooler's going to be out there. A guy like Jalen Hawkins, I would imagine, be out there. I wonder if we see Duggar and Peppers. Like, maybe you should throw all the safeties out there, every one of them, and let them go to work.
And by the way, what about some DNs? Like, stack the middle with 2-3 DNs, right? Boucher and Keon White or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, because you're not running down the field anymore. You're just there, So you got to get up. What we need you to do is get off your block and make a play. And of course, not a line of scrimmage, right? So there's a little bit more open space, but still,
Yeah. So it's I'm interested to see how they approach it, and then how you adapt, because nobody's going to have the one correct strategy week 1 of this season. There's going to be a lot of experimenting and tweaking as we go through this, and I want to see how New England changes. This is an area where I think you want guys who watch a lot of football and can pull ideas from a lot of different areas of the sport and get creative with it. Again, especially this season, expectations are low this year. If you're well coached on special teams and you are able to win a game because you do something new there that works, this is the year where you can get away with it, because if it doesn't work, who cares? Like, if you win one game because you tried something cool on special teams and you lose something because you tried something and it didn't work, well, that's okay this year, and you could just take the thing that worked and keep it and scrap the thing that didn't work. But also, with more returns too, ball security is going to be huge there.
Yeah,
we're talking about all the creative schematic stuff you can do. You need a guy who can carry the ball.
100%.
You can't be in a situation where you're losing possession in the game because your dude's fumbling a kickoff. We don't want a Leotis McKelvin here. This is
right.
I believe was that the Bills returner in 2009. I believe it was.
Yep, sure was. Opening night.
Yeah, you don't want that kind of stuff. This team can't afford to give away possessions. Whoever's back there, you got to have a real solid hold on that football.
Yeah, I agree. So, by the way, a lot of negativity in the chat tonight. Lots of negativity in the chat. Patriots winning 5 games at best. Patriots going to suck. We all know what's going on. Chad Ryland is already checked out, is what someone said. Like, what do we even? You haven't seen a video
Chad
of Chad
Ryland
Ryland.
made 80% of his kicks.
Zero videos of Chad Ryland. How do we know? Like, what are we even talking about? So I listen. I know. I understand. People are upset. People are still upset, and that's okay. It's okay to be upset. But like, let's approach it with a little bit of optimism. Let's take a look at this year and say, if they only win 5 games, but if we see some growth from their young guys, that's a good thing. I thought I was really excited about the way that Gerard Mayo talked about Keon White. And so, we'll see. I mean, it is what it is. And as old man Mom pointed out, Chad Ryland is responsible for getting us Drake May. Right? If we're selecting at pick 2, I think the Patriots probably pick Jaden Daniels. And as we all know, I am not sold on Jaden Daniels. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I've certainly been wrong about things in the past. But I look at it and just think Drake May is a significantly better prospect and has a much better chance of being successful than Jaden Daniels. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but that's how I feel.
Well, with Ryland, I don't know if he's going to be a good kicker ever. But
Right.
He's talented. There's a reason he was drafted last year. Like, he was probably a little bit of a reach where he was picked, but was definitely a draftable kicker last year. It was a guy with a huge leg who was a good kicker in college for a long time, who kicked in cold weather, and like, it's not that he can't, it wasn't working for him at the NFL. So hopefully with this year off and a mental reset and now coming back into it, he can be an asset to this team. If he isn't, he isn't. You go different ways, but with somebody that is as mental as kicking, I'm never gonna give up on a guy who has shown the talent that he did after just one season.
Right. And by the way,
he was 4 or 5 in OTAs from what the media saw. So that's something.
Right. And listen, to hit that field goal in Denver, I think was impressive. Now, he came out the next week and still didn't look great, but like, I just think mentally, if he can somehow get there, like, he has the talent. Now, I will say, mid-June, when the UFL ends, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a certain kicker named Bates that got signed by the Patriots. Certainly possible. But it's the way it goes.
When they brought in somebody, they run Sly, old Panthers kicker. I forget where else.
Yeah, Joey Sly, who I feel like doesn't even have.
Fine.
He wasn't even wearing a helmet today. Like, I don't know if he was kicked at all. It's just kind of like hey, Chad, if you suck again in training camp, this guy's going to take your job. We don't need to see what he can do. We know what he can do already. You know what I mean?
He can be a C- NFL kicker. So
right, exactly right. Which is better than Chad
get over this. Yeah, you got to get over this bar. You must be this tall to make the roster.
Exactly right. Also, I'm not sure if this is a compliment, but
I think it is.
But we love you and thank you. I appreciate it. And listen, the negativity in the chat is okay. By the way, it's okay to feel like this team sucks and everything is bad and everything looks bad and it's going to be a disaster. It certainly might be. I choose to be a little bit more optimistic than others. So when that's
and it's May and optimism is a choice. So
correct.
Personally, I'm gonna be optimistic until we see evidence otherwise. There's probably gonna be evidence otherwise, but we're not there yet.
Right, and I might be optimistic. That doesn't mean that I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to be great. They're not going to be very good this year, and that's okay. I just think that they're building towards something in the future, so that in 2 or 3 or 4 years they can be competitive and really compete. So
yeah. And
so we'll see. Okay,
Scott. I know we'll talk about other things. We got an ad break. Scott does ask in the chat how excited we are for this upcoming season.
Yeah,
feels like it's exciting to head into the unknown. He says. I will say, I was watching really nerdy of me, old like clips from Patriots games, and specifically just like the old CBS intros they used to use. And I was like, man, like I remember how excited I used to be watching some of those old Patriots. Like, some of this is like 05, 06 era. Like remember how excited I used to get on game days. And I was like, with the Patriots, we haven't gotten a lot of that lately. And I feel that about this team this year, especially once May starts. I'm not going to get that when Brissett's starting. Yeah. That's fine. He's a placeholder. He's good. He's going to make this team competitive. I'm going to be excited for the games. I'm not going to get some of those goosebumps. Once May is in there, like, that's when it's all right. And if he's good, I think those goosebumps are going to come right back.
Yeah. And listen, you weren't alive for most of this, but like in the 90s, I always loved watching the Patriots. I loved watching Drew Bledsoe. I loved watching Terry Glenn. I loved Curtis Martin. Like, I loved all those guys, and those were fun teams. And 94 was a year that Bledsoe's second year. Parcells was still the coach. You draft Willie McGinnis number 4 overall. You like come in, they're like a tough team. They get to the playoffs. They lose to Belichick in the playoffs, but like they gone 5-11 the year before, and then draft Terry Glenn at the beginning. And then draft Willie McGinnis. And you're like, all right, like we're gonna have some fun this year. And they were a lot of fun to watch. And of course, that 96 team, you draft Terry Glenn in the first round, and you had drafted Curtis Martin the year before, and like that 96 team was such a fun team. And I was like excited about that year, right? And I'm not there right now. But what I am excited about is when you have young and I think talented players, it's fun to watch to see if they can grow into the guys you think they can be. Can we see Drake May start at some point this year and show that he's an NFL quarterback that can be really good? Can we see Keon White take the next step? Can we see, Christian Gonzalez come back and look as good as he did in the first few games last year? Can we see Marcus Jones start making plays again, right? Who after he was hurt last year?
Kyle Duggar is a playmaker.
Kyle Duggar, right? And so it's like, and then you start asking yourself, okay, what about the Jays, Baker and Polk? Like, what
the Jays? We got two pairs of Jays in Boston sports.
I love it so much.
Hopefully.
So, but that's kind of the way. That's the way I feel about it. And by the way, Spectre Des is totally right. Like, excuse me, Mac gave us a ton of hope, and we all got our hopes up like super high for Mac, and then he sucked for 2 years, and like he wasn't put in a good position. And I understand all of that stuff, but like our expectations were high. Last year we predicted them to win 11 games last year, right? So like it's one of those things where like we've been burned the last few years because we were super optimistic, and now like people don't feel like they can be optimistic. It's okay. It's all right, and I, we'll see. We'll see. Also, Old Man Mob's asking about the Javon Baker things about his dad that Greg Bedard wrote. Like, Old Man Mob was just asking about your take on it. But
no, I just don't put any stock in that. Javon Baker, fine by me.
I didn't hear about him before the draft. I didn't hear about him after the draft. I didn't hear about him. I've literally don't even know who his father is.
Yeah.
10 times worse than LeVar Ball is what I heard. Come on. What are we talking about?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Or maybe it was 10 times worse than Caleb Williams' dad. But either way, it's stupid.
I think it was both. But
maybe. But it's just foolish.
If we see something happen publicly, sure. I'm not believing reports that don't come out until a month after the draft about this kind of stuff. Like, that stuff's just not going to be under wraps. Like, that's not.
No, there's no way. If that was really true about his dad, it would have been everywhere.
Well, also, if his dad is that way, this dude's a 4th-round pick. You don't have leverage whatsoever.
Correct.
You can't become like it won't become an issue.
Right.
I'm not worried about it at all.
It's the way it is. Yeah.
But all right. Do another ad read and then take
second ad read. You go. All right. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you can watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Now, with Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you're locked in. Now, there's always actions in Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try something out new. As basketball is winding down, make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Now, this month, I'm going with Jason Tatum. I'm just going to do every damn game. Jason Tatum, 25-plus points or more, and Luka Doncic, 25-plus points or more in every game. Caitlin Clark, I'm going for more than 3.5 three-pointers made, and Brianna Stewart for more than 23 points. Download the app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. So, what do we got? There was one other thing I wanted. Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about.
Wide receiver contracts?
So, wide receiver contracts, but because of the wide receiver contracts, Old Man Mob asked a question. Someone else asked another trade question as well about Matthew Judon, which I think we've already talked about. But this idea is kind of bouncing around. Pop Douglas and a 2025 second and fourth for T. Higgins. How do you feel about that?
I'm not doing that trade right now because I want to see how things play out with T. Higgins, honestly. Um, with where we are in the cycle right now, I think that's too much to give up for T. Higgins, especially because you're going to have to pay him. You're talking about a late addition. You're convinced, like, if the Bengals are willing to sell him at this point, they're either selling really cheap because they know they can't get a deal done and they just want to get anything back, or you're offering a ton to pry him away. And I'm not offering a ton to pry T. Higgins away.
No.
He's a good player. He's not like giving up a first round pick level to me. So I wouldn't give up a second and Pop in the same thing. That is too much to me. And I probably wouldn't give up any of the receiver. I mean, if they want Tyquan Thornton, they can have Tyquan Thornton at T. Higgins trade. That's fine. But I'm not giving up Bourne or Osborne, I don't think, in a deal. And I'm not giving up one of the guys I just drafted. If Pop's involved in the deal, it's going to have to be Pop in a day 3 pick, I think. And I don't think since he's doing that. But if you can do it for like a 3rd and a 4th, yeah, that I think is about the level I'm at with that now because of where we are in this and the fact that you got to pay him.
Yeah. Oh my God. Minnesota is down here by like 23, and they just have some guy who just has like the worst shooting form of all time, just chucking threes in the corner wide open and just bricking. Like, it's like embarrassing. Anyways, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. You have to pay all that. And then, to kind of bring it back into what you wanted to talk about, which is the fact that, Jalen Waddle gets $28 million a year. You're going to have to pay T. Higgins at least that. And it's like, this is a young team. I know T. Higgins is young, but like, in my personal opinion, I don't think he's a number one quarterback, number one receiver. I don't believe that. And
he's
so
a really good number 2.
Yes, he is. And that's definitely true. But to me, he's not a number one wide receiver. And I'm not paying him $30 million a year, especially after I give up the only receiver on my team last year that was actually good. Of course, KB, good, fine. But like, and then a 2nd round and a 4th round pick, like no chance. And then I got to pay him $30 million. I don't want T. Higgins anyways, because I just don't know. I'm not convinced that he's not going to turn into, a toxic or a cancer or whatever. I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen, but I don't love the way he's handled his contract situation in Cincy.
I think the other part to me is he's a guy who doesn't create a lot of separation and is a ball winner on the outside. And I don't want to give up a second and have this guy turn into Devontae Parker. I think he's better than Devontae Parker. And I think guys like that can age well because, sometimes they're relying on technique more so than athleticism with that stuff. We're never winning by burning guys down the field. So when they lose speed, it's fine. But no, I think Higgins is good. I'd give up a 3rd for him. I'm not going as high as a 2nd at this point in the cycle. But yeah, and I look at the wide receiver market. I see Nico Collins signed his deal. I think it was 3 years, $74 million extension in Houston.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle, 3 years, like $84 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that. This Nico Collins contract is a steal.
Yep.
Compared to Waddle. So I think Collins is a better receiver. To get him for that much less money is crazy. Miami, they're paying Waddle. They're paying Tyreek.
Mm-hmm.
I assume they're going to be paying Tua. And I don't think I think they might trade Tyreek at some point in here. Like, if I'm Miami, I think you are very close to looking at a situation here where you're at the cap and you're paying Tua a ton of money. And Jalen Waddle is your top receiver because you got rid of Tyreek Hill. You couldn't pay any of your defensive guys to stay, and you have no offensive line. And it's how do we win a football game? Right. I think they got good coaching. I don't think it'll get that bad. But I question, and I don't think signing Jalen Waddle is bad, to be clear, but I think it's a lot of money for a guy who is a good receiver, but definitely a number 2 in my eyes. And I don't know how they're going to negotiate this going forward.
Well, that's really the issue, right? And I was talking to my dad about this, and he said, they're built just like those old Dan Marino Dolphins, where like they have a lot of talent offensively, but they're not tough. That's a team that cannot survive in the cold weather. Now, if they're the number 1 seed and you have to go to Miami and play them, there's a chance that they could win those games. If they play inside a dome, there's a chance.
Yeah.
But like, I don't see it. So,
well, and they're like,
you know,
if they stick with Tua and they pay him, you look at the AFC East right now, and I think the Jets are on a short-term cycle right now because once Rodgers is done, they're going back after the season. They're going back to the drawing board of quarterback. A draft it's not going to be, right now it doesn't look that great at quarterback. They're going to be looking for answers there. And the Dolphins, to me, are a team that, like it's a 1 or 2 year window right now because they got some issues with some of the team building stuff. And once they're giving Tua a lot of money, they enter a whole new phase of this. And I don't know if they might look like the Rams did that last year with Jared Goff. Like they might be a team that's going to be like 9-8 most seasons or hovering around 500. And the Bills are in the middle of a resetting right now. And sometimes you come out of a reset and it looks like, the 2007 Patriots, the 2014 Patriots. And sometimes you come out of a reset, it looks like the 2009 Patriots or the 2020 Patriots or the 2023 Patriots. Obviously, they have the quarterback, so they're not going to hit 2023 Patriots levels. But I think you look at the future of the AFC East, there's a real opportunity here for New England, especially if you fast forward 2 years into the future. Keon Coleman isn't the guy for the Bills, and they can't, replace some of the pieces they lost on defense. And the Jets don't find a new quarterback, and Tua is just okay. Patriots can be the best, or at least the top 2 team in this division in 2025 or 2026, and it won't be shocking at all.
I agree. Because the Jets are going all in. You have to think the Jets are going all in right now. And I still don't think they're good enough to win a championship right now with Aaron Rodgers. So, like, it just...
Well, I think in some ways, if you're a Patriots fan, one of the best outcomes here is that the Jets are just good enough this year to convince themselves that this coaching staff is what they should be sticking with.
Yep.
And then Rodgers retires, which, he confirmed that he considered retiring before this season to go into politics. I can't imagine that he's going to be around the next season.
No.
If they suck. Yeah. And if they're trying to draft, let's say that offensive line still isn't that great, especially if Tyron Smith it doesn't have much left here.
Right.
If they're drafting the second or third quarterback in the draft next year in the first round trying to fix this, the defense will be good, but the offense might go right back to how it's been with Zach Wilson, an offensive coordinator you don't like. And then all of a sudden you got to pay all these guys on defense, and you don't have your infrastructure on offense outside of one really good receiver and maybe a really good running back. And where are you? So I think the Jets made good moves to win this year, but if you're looking in the future life cycle of the AFC East, Patriots have every opportunity to step up and become the top team in this division again. Yeah.
And this is, by the way, how I feel with the Jets. TD just nailed it. Jets will find a way to bleep it up and not make the playoffs. I feel the same way. And you're right. Well, I think they maybe make the playoffs, but lose in the first round of the playoffs. Don't win a playoff game.
Or like they could be, 7th seed and they're going to go to Kansas City in the first round. Or
the door's blown off. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and its health is such a big question for this Jets.
Oh yeah.
We're hoping on how old Aaron Rodgers? 43, 42.
Yeah.
Banking on his Achilles. You're banking on Mike Williams staying healthy. You're banking on Tyron Smith staying healthy. I like Olu Fashanu as a pick there, but I don't know how good he would be as a spot starter for you.
He's got some work to do.
Yeah. I don't like the depth of that receiving core. The defense is good. Not worried about the defense. I think that probably the floor on this team is 7 wins just because of that defense, even if they don't get good quarterback play. Man, and it's do you see the video of Rodgers at Jets OTAs?
No.
He didn't look great. They had him running bootleg, and he was still kind of like hobbling through it.
It's not great.
It's a guy whose mobility is huge. That's how he extends plays.
Yeah.
So, he's 40-something coming off an Achilles injury. He hasn't been like that great in a couple of years. He's been good, but he hasn't been elite in a couple of years. And I don't know what he's going to look like this year.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm fading. We got to get the heck out of here.
That's fair.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week. I would assume Monday.
Yeah.
maybe Wednesday. Thursday is the first night of the finals. We will not be recording on NBA Finals nights because we're not going to do that to you, and frankly, we're not going to do that to us. And so enjoy the finals. But I'll say we'll be back early next week, and then we'll figure out if we want to do Wednesday or whatever, and go.
We could do Monday, Wednesday, or we could do a Friday night show. I'm fine with that.
We could do it too. Yeah, we could do that too. So we'll figure it out. We'll kind of go from there and figure it out. Shout out to my little Vi, who's going to be 11 tomorrow. Happy birthday, Vi, and we'll go from there. So yeah, she's excited. So, and then it's gonna be June. It's gonna be June before we know it on Saturday. So that's pretty exciting. So, anyways, thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate you guys coming out and keeping the chat going as always. Thank you so much for joining in the show. You guys make the show better than we can make it. So, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.